Welcome. Today, we're going way, way back. I'm talking before empires, before writing, before anything we typically call history. We're going to explore the enormous, incredible era that literally forged our species and shaped everything about who we are today. So let's dive in.
So let me ask you a question. When does history really begin? It sounds simple, right? But the answer, well, it's a bit more complicated. We think of history as dates, kings, battles, written records. But what about the millions of years that set the stage for all of it?
Well, that vast, almost unimaginable stretch of time is what we call prehistory. It's the story of humanity, but it's a story told without words. Instead, we have to listen to the silent clues left behind, things like bones, stone tools, and ancient mysterious art.
And that, right there, is the huge difference. A historian gets to read archives and documents, but a prehistorian? They're more like a detective. They're on the ground, piecing together scattered clues to reconstruct an entire world that left no notes behind. It is, quite literally, the ultimate cold case.
So here's our roadmap for this journey. We're going to start in the deep past, in the age of the hunt. Then we'll see the first sparks of human creativity and belief. We'll navigate a world that's changing fast before we get to the single biggest revolution in human history, all to figure out the incredible legacy these ancestors left for us.
All right, our journey begins in the Paleolithic, the Old Stone Age. Now, this isn't just some historical period. You have to think of it as the long, sprawling childhood of our species, an age that was all about survival, adaptation, and the hunt.
Just to put this into perspective, look at the sheer scale of it. If you condensed all of human existence into a single 24-hour day, the Paleolithic era would be everything from midnight all the way to about 11:54 p.m. Almost the entire story happens right here.
So what was life like? Well, for starters, it was always on the move. You'd live in these small, tight-knit groups, kind of like extended families of maybe 30 people tops. You followed the herds, you followed the seasons. Your survival depended completely on the person next to you. It was all about group solidarity.
Then, something happened that was an absolute game changer. Around 400,000 years ago, we mastered fire. And it wasn't just about staying warm. Fire was a weapon. It was a shield against predators. It was a hunting tool. And maybe most importantly, it was a kitchen that unlocked way more nutrients in food. This one thing completely rewired the human experience.
But this long dawn of humanity was definitely not a walk in the park. It was punctuated by these dramatic, repeated ice ages, when massive glaciers covered huge chunks of the planet. Now, this was a huge challenge, but it also leads to a pretty common misunderstanding. You might imagine our ancestors huddled in caves on the very brink of extinction, but the truth is actually so much more incredible. This period of intense climate stress was a catalyst. It forced us to adapt, to innovate. Humanity didn't just survive the Ice Age, we thrived, and we spread out from Africa to cover the entire globe. But survival isn't the whole story. As our ancestors' brains grew more complex, something else started to awaken, something profound. This is where we see the first hints of art, of symbolism, and what we might call the birth of the sacred.
I want you to just imagine this for a second. You venture deep into the earth with nothing but a flickering torch, leaving the sunlit world far behind. You go into the total, silent darkness of a cave, because it was in these hidden sacred spaces that our ancestors created their very first masterpieces. And using nothing but natural minerals and charcoal, they painted the world they knew with this stunning, breathtaking realism. We're talking herds of bison, powerful horses, enormous mammoths. I mean, these weren't just crude doodles. This was the work of seriously skilled artists.
But the big question is why? Why go to all that trouble, deep in the darkest, most inaccessible parts of a cave? Was it just art? Or was it something more? Maybe part of a ritual to ensure a good hunt, a way to connect with the spirit world. We don't know for sure, and honestly, that mystery is part of what makes it so powerful.
And it wasn't just paintings. We also find these small, mysterious statues that we call Venus figurines. Now, they're obviously not realistic portraits. With those exaggerated features, they were almost certainly powerful symbols of fertility, of motherhood, of the incredible miracle of life itself. And maybe the clearest sign of this new, complex thinking is in how they started to treat their dead. The simple act of deliberately burying someone, and sometimes including tools or food with them, well, that tells us everything. It suggests they saw death not just as an end, but maybe as a journey. It hints at a belief in a world beyond our own.
So, just as humanity is finding its footing, the planet itself changes the rules of the game. We're now moving into the Mesolithic, the Middle Stone Age. The great ice sheets are finally retreating, the world is getting warmer, and once again, our ancestors had to adapt to a world in total transition.
And a warmer world meant a new challenge. The giant mammals of the Ice Age, like mammoths and woolly rhinos, they were disappearing. The menu completely changed. Humans had to pivot from hunting massive game to focusing on smaller, faster prey, things like deer, birds, and a lot more fish.
But this challenge just sparked a new wave of creativity. We see the invention of the bow and arrow, a huge technological leap. They perfected microliths, these tiny, razor-sharp stone flakes for more precise tools. And, for the very first time, we see people starting to settle down for longer, creating semi-permanent camps near coasts and rivers. They were laying the groundwork for what was coming next.
And what came next wasn't just another small change. No, this was the big one. It was arguably the single most important transformation in the entire story of our species, the Neolithic Revolution.
It all started around 8000 BC in a region called the Fertile Crescent, and humans made an earth-shattering discovery. They figured out they could plant seeds and grow their own food. At the exact same time, they began taming and breeding animals. In short, they went from finding food to producing it.
And this one shift changed absolutely everything. Humanity went from being nomads to settlers, from tiny, mobile bands to permanent villages, and, crucially, from a life of just barely getting by each day to a life with a surplus of food.
And this triggered a massive domino effect. A stable food supply meant the population exploded, and having extra food meant that not everybody had to be a farmer anymore. So you get specialized jobs, artisans, priests, leaders. And with that comes social classes, the idea of property, the very foundations of what we call civilization.
So that brings us pretty much to the end of our prehistoric journey. We're at the bridge that connects this ancient world to the world of written records, and it's time to talk about the most important lesson from our deep, deep past.
So, after the Neolithic Revolution, things really started to accelerate. Humanity entered the Metal Ages, first copper, then bronze, then iron, creating better and better tools and weapons. And all of this technological progress culminates around 3000 BC with one final, crucial invention: writing. Just like that, prehistory was over and history had begun.
So, after all that, after millions of years of survival, adaptation, and revolution, what's the single greatest takeaway? What is the one defining characteristic of our species that was forged in this prehistoric fire?
It's this. Our defining trait, the thing we see proven over and over again, is our incredible, relentless ability to adapt and innovate. When we were faced with massive climate change or the collapse of our food supply, we didn't just give up. We got busy. We found solutions. We changed.
And that really leaves us with a final question for our own time, doesn't it? As we face the enormous challenges of our modern world, the lesson from our deepest past isn't one of doom, it's one of incredible potential. The only question is, can we once again tap into that fundamental human strength, our proven, incredible power to adapt?
History isn't dust, it's a journey through time. Here on History LM, we tell it simply and fast. If you love discovering the past in just a few minutes, hit like and follow History LM. Your next journey through time is waiting.